Всем привет! Приехали в Балашиху для беседы с тренером по физподготовке команды «Авангард» Брэндоном Бови. Разговор сегодня будет у нас про дыхание. Пойдемте. Мы идем в лабораторию успеха, в лабораторию чемпионов Омского авангарда. Будем разговаривать с тренером по физподготовке Брэндоном Бови. Он нам расскажет о современных технологиях, о тех вещах, которые принесли успех и чемпионство авангарду. Брэндон, привет!
Привет, хорошо.
Привет, Боб! Как дела?
Bob Tom.
Да,
Not другой, тренерская Tom. Well, this is MOXY monitor. What this is it shines a light into the muscle, and this light reflects back into the system. And what it allows me to do is it allows me to look at how much oxygen there is in the muscle at any given time, and how much THB, so how much total hemoglobin is going into the muscle. So what I can do is I can see real time how much oxygen and how much hemoglobin is carrying oxygen in the muscle. It's great because it allows me to see how much oxygen the muscle is carrying, but also how well guys are utilizing oxygen and what kind of problems that I can kind of group guys into three different kinds of problems. That they either have like supply issues, so they're not getting enough oxygen into the muscle, or they have a utilization problem. They don't use oxygen very well, or they have a respiratory issue. You do it in training too. I use it during training.
Только на ноги это вешается.
Most of the time, 80% of the time, I use it just on the quadriceps. But there is some programs where I do it here on the mid delt, and there's a couple programs where I put one on the upper delt, so that I can do. Sometimes I'll do bike sprints, and then I'll do upper body work, and then to get the blood to go from upper body to lower body. This last season, I just used it mostly in the gym. Yeah, I'm planning to try to use it more in the on the ice. Yeah, I would like to test guys on the ice with it. So this is just my left leg the other day. So this is what it looks like. That's SMO2, so that's the oxygen. So I'm doing sprints here, 15-second sprints.
Кислород заканчивается.
Да. I stop.
Да.
I fully recover. As soon as I don't go off time. I go off what the MOXY shows me. I recover, I go again. So I don't go off time. I go off what the MOXY shows me. And that's the beauty of the MOXY, is that you can see real time when you're recovered. The hardest thing in hockey is figuring out when guys are recovered. The last thing in hockey for guys to recover is their breathing.
Дыхание.
Да. Everyone recovers their oxygen, but most guys don't recover their breathing because they don't train breathing. And then here, as you can see my graph, it's starting, my recovery line is not getting up, so I stop.
Да.
So ideally what you want to see when you do a sprint is if hemoglobin goes down when you start to utilize oxygen, you're creating a muscle compression. You're just barely squeezing on the muscle.
Так, да, я понял.
Okay? That's a muscle compression when THB goes down. If THB goes up, you're creating a venous occlusion, so there's blood pooling under the sensor. So you're creating a venous occlusion. If you see it stay straight, if you see it, there's no change in THB, so there's like a flat line. There's an arterial occlusion, so you're clamped off on both sides of the muscle.
У нас на графике три линии. Зеленая — это у нас идет кислород, красный — пульс, и оранжевая — это гемоглобин. Брэндон рассказал, как работает монитор MOXY, и он показывает во время тренировки, как мышцы работают, как кислород поступает к мышцам, показывает уровень гемоглобина и показывает сердцебиение. и очень хорошо показывает, когда мышцы восстанавливаются и когда ты можешь начинать работу.
As you can see on my graph, because I train breathing all the time, my graph looks like this. It's like a V. A lot of times what you'll see is guys they look like this. And that's because they have respiratory issues. They can't breathe off the CO2. They have respiratory issues. They can't reload oxygen. They get a lot of CO2 in the body. So that's very high after a sprint.
Да.
So when they come back to the bench, you want them to get rid of the CO2. So you want them breathing off so they can load more oxygen. That feeling, so when you see the graph is like this, they can't reload the oxygen because they have so high CO2. And you want to breathe off the CO2 so that you can reload oxygen. You come down, you bring the oxygen down into your muscles, and 2 or 3 oxygen get out. But when you have high CO2, when you go back into the heart and the lungs, you can't load oxygen because you have too high of CO2.
Да.
So it becomes all about having O2 and CO2 balance. You have to have a balance.
Так, как?
Because that's what the breathing is for, is learning how to balance O2 and CO2. Because if you have too high of CO2, you can't load oxygen. But if you have too much oxygen, you can't unload it. It's too sticky.
Значит,
It sticks to the hemoglobin. You need CO2 to unload the oxygen. So that's why that's important. That's why breathing is important. It's all about the O2 CO2 balance.
Монитор наш помощник отследить, как наши мышцы работают, какой кислород и какое количество углекислого газа,
Да.
правильно?
Да.
Так, вы ближе друг к другу.
Да, да. Так, какие методы вы использовали, чтобы стать сильными чемпионами, Брэндон? Дыхание, это я понял, вы чемпионство, это резерв на следующий сезон для чемпионства, да? В этом году какие вещи простые вы использовали, чтобы так понятно было?
And just consistency. Consistency in the gym. Doing the small things and trying to do it really well.
Маленькие вещи, но каждый день.
Да.
Вот за счет вот этой картинки. Каждый день они эту картинку смотрели, представляли, и плюс еще вот вещи, правильно сказали, сила в единстве. Я с этим тоже полностью согласен.
Is that here is the traditional model of energy system. So the first 15 to 20 seconds, they say, is your
Да.
phosphocreatine system. After it's your glycolytic system, and then your aerobic system.
Да.
But you notice right when you put the MOXY on, you have oxygen in your muscle already. And as soon as you start to sprint, you use oxygen. You're using oxygen right away. If you can increase someone's CO2 during injury, they're going to come back from injury faster. Like this.
Хорошо, какие упражнения для дыхания нужно делать?
Uh,
Что вы делаете для дыхания? Ты говоришь, важность дыхания. Какого дыхания? Как ты тренируешь дыхание?
well, I use the Spyro Tiger, that device there, and I've been really into using the Buteyko method. What the Buteyko method helps with is it helps to build your tolerance to CO2. You need to build your tolerance to CO2. If you can handle more CO2, then I think you can go longer. Because the CO2 is what gives you
Да,
the
я
lightheaded.
понимаю. В команде ты даешь эти упражнения?
Not yet. I'm still mastering the system myself.
Сколько у тебя период длится уже?
6 месяцев.
6 месяцев.
Да.
И ты смотришь, что у тебя уже есть успехи.
Да, I have all this, where's my, I have all the tracking. I have a 5-liter bag.
Это 5-литровый
Мешок.
мешок, да, для силовой тренировки.
For your diaphragm. This bag I use for warm-up. It's a 3-liter bag. I do some like dynamic breathing stuff. So maybe real small and real fast breathing. On the Spyro Tiger, this is the time, how much time you want to go. Normally I just set the Spyro Tiger at 0. This is the rate frequency. So how many breaths you're breathing in a minute. Your respiratory muscles, Sergey, are just muscles.
Да.
You need to train them the same way you train your quadriceps.
А сколько по времени занимает тренировка дыхания?
About 20-30 minutes a day.
23 минуты в день.
Try-
Сколько раз в неделю?
4.
4 раза в неделю.
Да. So I have a day where I do strength breathing. So strength breathing looks like this.
Силовое дыхание, да.
This is 5-liter bag.
Да.
What I do is I go here. I do a pelvic tilt.
Выдыхание.
And I try to fill the bag. And I do 6 to 8 repetitions. I can take this small bag. Now because I want to know how fast I'm breathing, I set the bag size. So speed breathing, I need to sit down. And this has on it has a dot on the top and on the bottom so that you know each time that you're filling the bag. You can watch the dots. That would have been 120 breaths in 1 minute. The way I do my own program and the way I plan to do a program is 1 day speed, 1 day general strength, 1 day aerobic, day off, 1 day power, 1 day aerobic. That's how I would do an off-season program. So here you can do hypoxic. Oh. So there's a slider in here. I'm trying not to move the slider now because I'm trying to do hypoxic breathing. So I'm rebreathing my own air.
Уровень кислорода на одном поддерживается. Да, снизился 95. 90.
You do that for 10 minutes. What you have to remember with this thing is that what you're feeling now, this will show you in 30 seconds. There's a little bit of a time gap.
Люди начали использовать именно в профессиональном спорте совсем недавно. Тем более есть методы уже научные, которые показывают, что кто учится дыханию, избавляется от болезней, становится счастливым. И я считаю, что это еще тот же ресурс в достижении новых результатов. С тобой на связи. Спасибо за приглашение.
Давай.
Дани, сделаешь нам фотку?